It's 1:30, and from CBS News, Morning continues with Charles Kuralt and Diane Sawyer. This portion of Morning is sponsored by Changing Times, the money-making, money-saving Kiplinger magazine.
Good morning again. The death toll from yesterday's plane crash in Washington is now at least 81. 71 passengers and 4 crew members of Air Florida's Flight 90, and at least 6 motorists on the bridge that crosses the Potomac from Washington to Virginia. There were only 5 survivors among the people on the plane, 4 passengers and a flight attendant. They were saved from the icy water in a series of dramatic rescues. The plane crashed as the Air Florida plane was bound for Tampa and Fort Lauderdale, and it took off from National Airport shortly after 4 p.m. yesterday. It failed to gain altitude as it approached the 14th Street Bridge, just 3/4 of a mile from the runway. It sheared off the tops of 4 cars and a truck, and then the railing of the bridge before it plunged into the Potomac. Most of those who died in the plane have still not been found, but the rescue efforts are continuing this morning, and Bill Lynch is at the scene. Good morning, Bill.
Diane, within the past 20 minutes, a large crane assembly began arriving here on the opposite side of the 14th Street Bridge, the span that was not struck by the aircraft yesterday. That crane equipment will be set up in the next couple of hours, probably, and it will begin preparing to attach cables to the fuselage, the tail section, and the nose section, all of which are submerged in 26 feet of icy water of the Potomac River. The rescue operation was to have started at first light today, but things have gone slowly. We're expecting the arrival of hard hat diving teams, Coast Guardsmen who brought in from Philadelphia, New York, and Baltimore. They will attempt to attach the cables on the guidance of Boeing aircraft engineers in such a way that there will be as little stress as possible, so that when it's lifted, there will be no more breakup, hopefully, of the aircraft wreckage. They hope to be able to bring the wreckage out with the bodies inside. If the wreckage begins to break up, they will then use the divers to start extracting the remains of the victims still trapped in their seats inside this 737. Meanwhile, air traffic has resumed as normal from National Airport. Planes have been taking off here about once every 90 seconds. Diane?
Thank you very much, Bill. Federal investigators have been trying to determine the cause of the crash, but they say it will probably be months before they have the answer. Charles?
One of the things the investigators will do is talk with...
Well, anyhow, that is 30 years ago. 30 years ago, CBS News coverage on the 14th. That was the day after the big Air Florida crash. 30 years ago today, January 13th, 1982, the Air Florida plane crashed into the Potomac River, skimming across the top of the 14th Street Bridge and, hitting a bunch of cars on the bridge. A terrible tragedy. And as I was saying on DCR TV the other day, if you lived in this area, if you were an adult, if you were a kid, you know where you were, you know what you were doing in the Washington area on this day 30 years ago. I was a reporter at the Reston Times, by the way, back then, and I remember I'd just gotten off work and come home, turned on the TV, and boom, there was the news. We did a number of stories at the paper regarding the crash because I believe one of the stewardesses from the Air Florida plane lived in Herndon, and we reported on that. So anyhow, it's interesting to think that was 30 years ago. And of course, Howard Stern and his infamous alleged call to Air Florida asking for tickets to the 14th Street Bridge. Again, there's debate on the website whether he actually really did call Air Florida or whether that was just a set-up stunt call. But anyhow, it was kind of spelled the end of Howard Stern. He got fired shortly thereafter from DC 101 for just being kind of too crazy. You have to realize, today, a lot of the shock jockish stuff that goes on, people are kind of used to it. Back in the early 80s, Howard was really, he was hitting new ground there. People weren't used to shock jocks like Howard. And it was interesting. I do have some old tapes of Howard Stern that I will have to play on DCR TV one of these days from his old DC 101 days. All right, folks. The other big news, we're getting ready for the big launch of 99.1 WNEW, that new CBS All-Newser that is starting up next Thursday, the 19th. and more hires by the station. You know, we just reported here at DCRTV that Channel 9's weather staff will be providing weather coverage on the new station. So you will be hearing Topper Shutt and Howard Bernstein and folks like that doing weather forecasts on the new 99.1, just as you hear the staff from Channel 7, Doug Hill, doing weather forecasts for WTOP. We also found out that Frank Hanrahan, former WTOP sports reporter, will be doing sports for the new WNEW and also WJFK. They're in the same building now. CBS just moved WJFK Sports Talker 106.7 from Fairfax into Lanham, and that's where the WNEW studios are. So we're going to be hearing a lot of the WJFK sports people on WNEW. So there. Okay, so people are saying to me, Dave, how's this new station going to do? How's it going to do? I really think they got a good staff, okay? I think the staff is good. I like the anchor lineup, Bill Rakoff and Amy Morris and Chaz Henry and all the rest of them. I think they got a good staff lined up. I think they got Lisa Baden. I mean, they know they got Lisa Baden. That's a good. They got the Channel 9 Topper Shutt and all that. I think they got a good staff. They've got some good reporters there. I think they'll be putting out a very good product. And with CBS behind them and their history of doing all newsers in Philly and New York and out on the West Coast and Chicago, I think the station will be great. But the big linchpin in this, the big linchpin is the signal, okay? 99.1 is a Baltimore Metro signal. It's technically in the Baltimore Metro. It's in Anne Arundel County. Okay, it's not just outside the Beltway. It's about 10 miles outside the Beltway. Okay, the problem with that, you can get 99.1 pretty well throughout most of the Washington area, but it's not a great clock radio type signal on this side of the Potomac into Virginia. Okay, you got 2 million people in Virginia. You know, a lot of people say, hey, D.C. is the center of the D.C. Metro. It really isn't. Fairfax County is the center of the D.C. Metro. The D.C. Metro goes way into Virginia, and Fairfax County has twice the population of D.C. So you really got to look at it as Fairfax County, maybe Montgomery County, as being the center of the D.C. Metro. If you're going to want to get ratings with your radio station, you got to have a signal at least that covers, blankets Montgomery and Fairfax, okay? The new 99.1 doesn't quite do that, okay? Being over there in Crofton or wherever their transmitter is, you know, in Anne Arundel County, I mean, you can get a radio. If you have a decent radio with a decent antenna, a good car radio, it comes in just fine. But on a crappy clock radio, you know, on that little busted radio out in the kitchen that you like to listen to while you're doing the dishes, listen to the news, you know, it's not going to come in so great. It's not going to come in so great on people's radios in their offices and stuff because it's not a damn powerful signal throughout a lot of the metro area. So I think that's the problem 99.1 is going to have. It's a signal problem. And, you know, I think that's good enough to get. They'll get into the teens. They might get up to maybe 15th, 16th, 14th place in the ratings, but they're just not going to be able to really, really challenge WTOP with the 99.1 signal alone. That's what I firmly believe. Okay? And I really think somewhere down the line in 2012, we're going to see if CBS is really, they're putting a lot of money, a big staff to this station. You know, they're going to need to do something with that signal. One of the things I said what they could do would be to take 106.7 in Northern Virginia and also make that WNEW. So you have WNEW 99.1 up there in Anne Arundel County for the northeastern section of the suburbs into Baltimore and the Eastern Shore. And then you've got 106.7 for the D.C., central D.C. core and into Northern Virginia all the way down to Fredericksburg and Charlottesville. That would be a killer signal, but that would mean sacrificing one of CBS's current signals. I think they would move JFK to 94.7, but then they need to do something, get rid of Fresh or something. So I was giving it a lot of thought. What does CBS do to basically not gut one of their signals and give WNEW a strong signal? And this is what I came up with, okay? This is what is probably the best solution, okay? Put the new WNEW on 95.5, okay? That's technically an outside, it's an inside the Beltway signal there. It's in Prince George's County, but it's inside the Beltway. They would get good coverage of the core metro area on 95.5. Move PGC over to 99.1. Why? Because PGC gets killer ratings in Baltimore already on 95.5. This would actually strengthen PGC's signal into Baltimore. CBS doesn't have an urban/rap station in Baltimore, so this wouldn't cannibalize any of CBS's current stations in Baltimore. So this would give PGC a great signal in Prince George's County, its home base, and a great signal into the Baltimore metro, and a pretty good signal into Nova. Not great, but, pretty good. So, I think this would be the best thing. Then to take El Zal, which is already on 107.9, and it's hurting in its ratings over there because, again, not a great signal into Northern Virginia and D.C., and double it up on 1580, okay? A lot of the Latino Hispanic people are already used to listening to a lot of their radio on AM, so, they probably wouldn't be so adverse to tuning into 1580 to listen to El Zal also. So double up El Zal on 107.9 and 1580, and then move JFK over to 94.7, so it gives them an inside the Beltway signal, and then put Fresh on 106.7, which is a pretty good signal. Not great, but it would be good enough for Fresh. Okay, this is what I think. Now, the problem with this would be musical chairs. Everybody would get all confused for a couple weeks because all the signals would be different places. But I think once this were to settle out, I think this is the strongest scenario for CBS in Washington. I really do. They're putting a lot of money into WNEW. They're hiring a good, solid staff for it. And if they're really going to want to challenge Powerhouse TOP, they need a better signal. All right, folks, that's Dave TV. Dave TV! For the 13th of January, 2012. Have a good one. And so, there.